Hello, Coward Football. It's Coach Snead here, and I'm proud to say that recently I met with the team and talked to them, I guess a couple weeks back, about making some good decisions about eating and how to use the food that they eat to help them become the best version of themselves, not just in the field, but also in the classroom. That spawned a lot of questions from our players, and I started getting a whole lot of messages and texts from guys asking me to help them with a meal plan and do things like that. And that takes a lot of work and energy, and I've done that for a few guys. And so what I'd like to do, because it's always about trying to educate the actual players and understanding how to take care of what they need to take care of themselves, because they're not always going to have a coach or someone there to tell them what to do. And so I want to kind of develop this quick little PowerPoint, as quick as I can make it, covering some of the basics of things that we try to address. I'm no professional. I do have a degree in kinesiology and a long-time background in exercise science and nutrition and eating. So I do know the ins and outs enough to be really, really dangerous. And I've had a great deal of success working with athletes, young and old, including professional, collegiate, and of course, high school athletes. So let's just dive into this real quick. I'm going to cover some nuggets, go over some things, talk about some challenges, and talk about some of the nuts and bolts of what I do when I talk about our guys eating well and what they should do to try to be the best version of themselves through what they eat. All right, so first thing. The thing that I regularly notice our guys participating in after school when they have time is they go to the vending machines, or they have someone who's come from being release, and they go to 7-Eleven or Wawa and they get what's easily quick to grab, a lot of snacks. And so I want to first address that, just because I think that our guys, you guys need to know like what's in what you're eating and what is the value in what you're eating. At the end of the day, the energy we need to be successful in the field comes from nutrients called fats, of course, complex carbohydrates, and proteins. Now, proteins aren't going to give us energy, but what proteins are going to do are going to help us build back muscle. And it's been broken down through any exercise and anything that we do throughout the day. Sugars, complex carbohydrates are going to last longer in our system. They're going to help us produce a great amount of energy and force. They also contribute to recovering, because if you don't have carbohydrates in your system, then what happens is your body will start to drag down. You'll feel a loss in your performance, and your body will start depleting itself of other things that your body needs, primarily stored fats and things like that. And so we talk about those things in a minute, but those are things that can remember. The last thing are fats, and fats are not something we should avoid, but getting healthy fats is important. And you'll find that the healthier the foods that have less ingredients added to them, less processed stuff to them, that have fat are going to be better for them, better for our athletes than something that's, doesn't have that, so things with saturated fats and things like that. So real quick, you're looking at a screen right now that has the comparison of Skittles and protein bars. I brought this up because, like I said, we were watching film on Monday, and a slew of former guys came in with Skittles, chips, candy bars. And so just giving you guys a rough understanding of this. So a bag of Skittles, just a small bag, would be about 3 servings. Now this says 16 servings.
Aguilar, please come to the office. Paige Aguilar, please come to the office.
But that's because that's the big family pack. So essentially 27 pieces of Skittles, just 27 little things. There's 110 calories in it, and it's all sugar. There's no value for protein, no value for complex carbohydrates, and no value for fat. Compare it to a whey protein bar. All right, one protein bar is 360 calories. It's got 20 grams of protein in it. It's got 41 grams of carbohydrates. Now, 29 of them are sugars, or 20 of them are sugars, I should say. And then 13 more fat. All right. Again, the trade-off is you're getting a very protein-enriched protein bar. The next thing you want to look at is ingredients. Now, these both have very large labels of ingredients because they're processed. And so I'm not advocating that a protein bar, whey protein bar, is so much better than a Skittles. Obviously, the best way to get your protein source would be from getting a chicken breast sandwich, because then you're just eating chicken and you're eating a pita bread or wrap or something like that. But case in point, sometimes we can't always grab things, and when you have to grab something, what choices am I making? Protein bar is going to be better than a Skittles. So the first thing someone's going to say to me is the cost of the protein bar versus a bag of chips. And I'll get into that in a minute, because I think that's the thing that we want to end on. So next, I compare, something like a Chipotle versus, McDonald's cheeseburger, quarter pounder cheese. Again, you'll probably pay a little bit more to get a burrito, maybe $16 for a burrito meal at Chipotle versus going to McDonald's paying about, anywhere between $11 to $14 for the whole meal there. But again, let's look at the bang for our buck, okay? So I eat a burrito or even a burrito bowl from Chipotle. I'm getting 60 grams of protein, 71 grams of protein. You see the net carbs, you see the fats. Please keep in mind the calorie intake on each one of these. Keep in mind the fats and the proteins, as we talk about this, because again, later on, we're going to go into some example meal plans. You're going to see some things that are probably a little different than what you're seeing here. And again, I'm just choosing and picking, because I would say if I was going to make a choice as an athlete of what I want to eat, for me to be the best version of myself, I'm going to Chipotle over McDonald's. All right. And then obviously, if I'm trying to keep away from adding extra calories from things I don't need, I want to boost my protein intake, I'm going to lean more to the burrito bowl versus the actual burrito. And then you compare it to the cheeseburger from McDonald's, 47 grams of protein, 40 grams of complex carbohydrates. There's sugar in that. I don't know why there's sugar in a cheeseburger, but there is. And then you've got 45 grams of fat, 18 of it being saturated. So, it's not very good. So anyway, going through that real quick, let's talk about, everything else that we're looking at here and where we're breaking things down and what we're trying to take from it. So when you talk about proteins, we like to tell our athletes, student athletes, that they want to get 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per pound of body mass. So quite simply, if my athlete's 150 pounds, then we want to get about 225 grams of protein. That's the high mark. The low mark would be 150 grams of protein. And so then we have to understand what protein looks like, what is in protein. And obviously we know meats, eggs, dairy products, your nuts, those things obviously have meats in it, proteins in it. And those are things that we want to use to kind of bulk up our diet to get protein that we need to get to build and repair muscle. Complex carbs can depend on the person's needs. You're going to talk about the proteins, and honestly, I use proteins as a way of helping a person who wants to cut weight and lose weight and get to a place where their body's got a higher BMI, body mass index. And so we try to keep the protein marks just kind of true to their weight, perspective. And so it's obvious if a guy's a little bit heavier and needs to lose weight, that if they're getting that protein mark, there's less calories per, serving of protein versus the servings of complex carbs. The idea is that, you look at the amount of calories in a chicken breast versus the amount of calories in a, 8 ounces of pasta. There's going to be more calories in the pasta. So if we're eating more protein, we're eating less carbs, and that's how you can kind of use that as a way of losing, fat, undesirable fat. But complex carbs are needed, and it depends not just on what our goals are as far as our body mass, but also it depends on what our activity level is and what are the demands. So this can fluctuate. Right now, we're in the heat of season. We're training twice a week at least. We're practicing as often as we are. The kids are getting up early to go to class. Their caloric need during the day is high. And so we're not trying to get more protein other than what's required, that 1 to 1.5 grams per pound of body mass. But we definitely got to boost the carbs up. And with that can also come a percentage of fats, healthy fats that you're involved. They're very essential because they release a little slower. And obviously, if we get too much calories and too many fats, our body will absorb and hold on to those fats. And that's how we get, add weight to our body that we may not want. But that's generally not the case when you start eating this way. You'll find that most of our kids add more body weight to their body when they're eating an excess amount of sugars, because we can load up our body and load up our diet daily with a lot of sugars that we just can't get rid of through the natural ways of burning activity. So sedentary lifestyle, a lot of sugars, it's going to be what's going to cause us to gain most of the fat, most of the weight that we don't want to gain. So real quick, I just wanted to kind of look at what this looks like, taking a young person that we just worked with back in May and building out a meal plan for them. This is specifically what we set for them. And when I break this meal plan down for them, I try to talk to them about what they're trying to accomplish, what their goals are, and then tell them exactly what it would look like based upon their daily schedule in school, and give them a very strict diet to follow for one day. And then between them and me corresponding back and forth, what does it look like when we start adding different type of food replacements in there, so they don't get tired of eating the same food all the time. Once again, that's an important part of this, because I don't want any kid who's trying to put on muscle, who's trying to develop a more athletic physique, a person who's trying to become the best version of himself on and off the field, in the classroom. I don't want them to become dependent on me. I want them to be able to understand this nutritional thing, so that way they can kind of do this on their own. So this particular athlete weighed 173 pounds at the time, 16 years old, 5'9". We first figured out their basal metabolic rate, and I'm not going to get down to the weeds too much, but that's an important part of this whole quotient, because that's the amount of calories that this athlete would burn just sitting around doing nothing. So this athlete would burn 1,890 calories. That's why that nutritional 2,000 calorie, diet thing that you see on the side of a lot of our nutritional labels, it says this is what the value is in protein based upon a 2,000 or 2,500 calorie diet, does not apply to an athlete. It does not apply at all, because of the amount of calories they need to do all the extra things that they do. So that's that. Then we went through what he was doing. At that point, he was doing off-season training, 3 days of lifting, 2 days of speed training. Okay, so that put him at an activity level 1.8. I have a kind of a efficient coefficient that we use between 1.7 and up to 2.1, depending on how active they are. And that's a variable that we found studying the data of training athletes for a long time. Again, based upon middle school all the way up through college and professional sports. So the goal was for him to be 183 basically when we start football practice, and this guy's about 190 now. So he's kind of done the deal, and it's worked out really well for him. And so you look at the top, again, you heard me talking about, what do we want to do, and how do we, reach these goals. And we first built out his protein intake, which was 260 grams. True to form, 173 times 1.5 gave me 260 grams. And then we talked about, okay, how much of that do we want to be fat? And I'm roughly working around 27 to 33 grams of fat. Multiplied that percentage by, again, his total number of calories that we need to consume, which is 3,902. And that gave us his fat intake. Then the carbohydrate intake would be the rest, complex carbs. That's it in a nutshell. Now, I know that seems like a lot, and this is where this athlete was. He was ready to do this. Some athletes say, hey, I want a meal plan, Coach Sneed, and they're not ready to go all in this. And this is something that's very detailed and very orchestrated with a lot of structure. So I don't want to belabor that and get into that too much, because at the end, I'm going to give you the bullet points of things that matter the most, So then you go through here and you can see what each one of his meals were. All right, meal 1 is breakfast. Meal 2 is snack. His lunch about noon. And then we go into, his meal 4, which would have been a pre-workout meal right before we go work out. Then his in-workout meal, which is something he's drinking while he's working out. And then he's got his post-workout meal, which is like a shake and an apple afterwards. And he's got his dinner here, and he's got an evening snack. And then you can see here that he met his goals and nutritionally if he does this. And of course, the results speak for himself. Numbers went up in the weight room. Strength and size went up. His body became more efficient. He meet the desired weight that he wanted to have, which helps him stay safer and stronger and more impactful in the field. But also, he's got an awareness in the classroom where he's not falling asleep. He's able to stay attentive. He's able to go home after practice, not feel completely famished and washed out, and can actually focus on his schoolwork and eating as well. Now, what I want to do is I want to take you to another meal plan where I made this for my nephew. And this guy weighs 127 pounds. He's 14 years old. This probably applies to many of our younger guys, and even some of our older guys who weigh about the same, a little bit more. And what I did is I did the exact same thing, all right, and gave him a breakdown of what he should be eating, talked about his meal plan, 8 meals again. But I went through helping his mom and his dad and him understand the cost of this. I went through and analyzed each thing. Now, if I go to BJ's and I bought protein, or I went to GNC and bought protein powder, the initial cost of protein powder as a supplement looks to be quite a bit. But when you break it down based upon serving, you'll see that this meal plan, eating all good foods, okay, we talk wheat bread, we're talking about chicken, we're talking about yogurts, we're talking about granola, we're talking about protein bars, we're talking about protein shakes, we're talking about ready to drink protein shakes, we're talking about some fruits, we're talking about some vegetables, pastas, meats. All this is built into this meal plan. And I'm going to break down, and I broke this down, that has exactly how much it costs for him to eat. So let's get into that, right? So at the end of the day, for my 14-year-old nephew, he weighed 127 pounds. The goal is to weigh 138 in 5 months of gaining lean muscle mass, hard gainer, which means he burns a lot of calories. In 2 days of lifting and 5 days of baseball, 8 total meals, it equaled $16.42. Why is that important? Because the first thing that any kid tells me when they come into this field house, or they come into my office, or they come into the study hall rooms after school, eating a bag of chips or eating some Skittles, is that it costs too much to eat good, or I can't afford to go to the grocery store. Well, 1/4 pound of cheese, large combo meal equals 1,380 calories. 37 grams of protein, 207 grams of carbs, 110 of that being sugar, just simple sugar, and 43 grams of fat, costing anywhere between $11.99 and $14.19. I can just leave that there because that's where we all end up going most of the time. The players do. I can tell you that a lot of times they send a guy out to go get something, or someone is coming to school late. I've said this before. And before we work out, they're eating this stuff. Now, we go into what there's nothing that replaces good, wholesome food that comes from the supermarket. The processed stuff, it's not good. You take a 1/4 pounder, you put it on the shelf for 6 months. 6 months later, that 1/4 pounder looks the same. You put a cheeseburger or a piece of chicken on the thing after you cooked it on a shelf. Within 2 weeks, it starts to get mold. The mold says it's real food. It's decomposing. You got a 1/4 pound of cheese. It doesn't decompose. Why would you want to put that inside your body? So now I go back to Aiden's, meal plan here. All right. He finished the meal plan off with a total net of 3,426 calories. Okay. That's almost 3 times what you get from one meal from McDonald's. And yet he paid only $2 more, roughly, to eat 8 times in one day. 191 grams of protein is what his meal plan created for him. Okay? 191. This has 37. His fat intake, 117. This has 43. All right. Sugars, carbohydrates, this is 402. 1/4 pound cheese meal, 207. So again, I could go down deeper if anybody wanted to meet and talk to me about what it looks like and when you have a meal plan and things like that. But the bottom line is, I promise you, you go to the store, you think strategically, you get food that supports eating to live versus living to eat. And we live to be best athletes, the best students we can be. I can promise you it does not cost as much as we think it does when you start breaking down. Even in today's market where groceries are expensive. Because let me just be honest, if the grocery bill is increased, then you know what? The cost of a 1/4 pound of cheese or a Chipotle burrito has gone up as well. So with that, let's close out with some of the points of emphasis. First off, know your daily protein needs. Every athlete should know how much protein they need to have. All right, and slide over here. Read labels and choose meals that have more natural ingredients. Okay. Again, I give you an example of Skittles versus the Gatorade bar. Gatorade bar is better than the Skittles because it has the protein in it. But would I say that's better than a cheese and chicken breast sandwich? No. When you start reducing the amount of ingredients and the amount of processed stuff inside of food, the more healthier it is for you. You got to start by eating 6 to 8 times a day. Getting up and getting breakfast, packing some snacks in between there, building out 3 big bulky meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and adding supplemental meals in between. You have to start doing. Snacks can be, if you're just trying to create snacks, trail mix, a nut mix, fruit with peanut butter crackers, all the things I'm just mentioning not only have the ability to satisfy you, but they also have protein in them. Protein bars, protein shakes. These are the things you start to think about. Drink no less than 8 times 8 ounces of water on a regular day. So that's on a regular day. The day before, during, and after exercise may require you to do 1.5 times more water consumption. And so you have to think about that. But you should always be drinking water. And really the best measurement of whether or not you're hydrated or not is your urine clear. All right, meal prep on the weekend. You cannot wait until you get home on Monday to cook your food so that way you can eat. You need to have it packed and meal prepped out. The example meal plan that I showed you of both my nephew and one of our athletes here at Calvert High School had them cooking their eggs all in one day and having it portioned out in little trays. Cooking all their chicken on the grill, having it portioned out in the trays, or having it in a big bowl and pulling it out. That helps. All right, pack snacks. Again, I talked about that a little bit, but having extra snacks are important. And again, if you need 225 grams of protein, you need to pack all your snacks and all your meals that have those in it, because you're not going to be able to get 225 grams of protein eating one meal a day. You're not going to be able to get it eating one meal a day because your body can't digest all that protein in one sitting. It's going to require that you get protein no more than 50 to 60 grams per sitting over the duration of the entire day to make sure that your body's absorbing all that protein instead of wasting it. And sometimes you got to consider meal supplements and protein bars, protein shakes, protein powders, because we can't always get the necessary requirements of food that we need from regular new food sources. There's certainly a wide variety of different protein powders out there you can get. Not one is more special than the other. Some are more cleaner than others, meaning they have less processed stuff to it. But at the end of the day, just starting off getting something at Walmart is going to be more than ample for you. I'd stay away from any of your performance enhancement type, supplements. Creatine and the C4 type, nitro type stuff that you do before workout, pre-workouts. You can find that you get juiced up for a workout and you'll be ready to go if you start eating well. I wouldn't suggest anybody use any of those types of supplements, especially if they aren't meeting the mark by eating 6 to 8 times a day. So those are the nooks and crannies of eating well, of trying to attack the day, eating for the sake of becoming the best version of yourself. There's a lot of questions I'm sure that we create from this. My hope is I drop this in here as a video and you guys can absorb it and take it in. And then if anybody has any questions, maybe we can have a discussion, a panel discussion for players and parents virtually that we can talk about things. And then maybe we can go into maybe creating, more individualized meal plans, which don't change a whole lot between one athlete and the next. But we can certainly start considering that. So with that, I just want to kind of give you guys some basics on eating, some things that I use to help us out. Hope these answer some of your questions. I hope this gives us a good chance to get started and ready to rock and roll. If you have anything you need from me, just feel free to reach out. I'm Coach Need and I'm out. Boom.